Hi guys! Today we'll be recapping the manhwa, A Childhood Friend Became an Obsessive Husband. Please remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy the video. It really helps the channel. Thanks. We begin our story with a girl sitting alone at night, writing a letter by candlelight. She looks sad or nervous. It seems the letter is asking a question of someone very dear to her, and she's worried they'll refuse. To explain this mysterious scene, we travel back to a few days prior, when the same girl was taking a midnight stroll and stumbled upon a very suspicious exchange. One man she recognized as Priest Mateo, and the other was hidden by a cloak, handing over a purse full of gold. Well, that's a concerning sight if I ever saw one. And the whole situation gets even more troublesome when the girl, whose name is Isabelle, overhears them talking about her. As it turns out, the money is being used to buy her. Wait! What in the Wattpad is going on here? Apparently, some Duke named Cardiego is infatuated with Isabelle and wants her to himself. Priest Mateo has hated Isabelle for a long time and seems only too keen to get her off his hands. She has been living in this temple all her life, being looked after by the saintesses who feed and clothe her. But they've left on a temporary visit. Clearly, Priest Mateo saw his chance and took it. Back to the present, and Isabelle is getting emotional. The exchange is supposed to go down soon, and she's desperate to avoid being sold off at any cost. Duke Cardiego is famous for being cruel, a wicked man who is arrogant and bitter as a result of his lower body being disabled. Isabelle wants to make herself unappealing to him so that he will leave her alone, but so far she's drawing a blank. That is, until her childhood best friend Rix appears. As it happens, he's also the guy she was writing the letter to. Isabelle explains the situation and takes his hand suddenly, asking him to marry her. Whoa, that escalated quickly. Rick seems taken aback, as anyone would be if their best friend just asked for their hand in marriage. But Isabelle explains that the Duke will no longer want her if he knows she's married. She pulls out the letter, which was actually a contract that she drew up detailing the rules of this arrangement. She offers to do everything, the cooking, the cleaning, which might sound great if Rix didn't point out that Isabelle is terrible at both those things. Ouch! Despite his complaints, he knows his best friend really doesn't have another option. He agrees to consider her proposal, and she gives him her necklace as a kind of premature wedding gift. Then she runs off, leaving Rix to turn his attention to the Duke. I can't tell if that's jealousy or just good old-fashioned protective friendship, but it looks like Rix has a lesson to teach this Cardiego dude. Now, for a bit of historical context, Isabelle's story is taking place in the Rhenon Empire, where people believe that the goddess Isis bestows her love upon all the citizens. A long time ago, the story goes that she decided to share her power to three noble families. The first was the Rizalen family, who were given the power to predict the future. Then there was the Pillsburg family, who were able to manipulate the four elements with their magic. And finally, the Cardiego family, who can manipulate death and ghosts. So you can see why Isabelle doesn't want to get involved with him. Traditionally, they have always chosen an emperor from among these three families, and the Duke is definitely a strong contender. The temple Isabelle grew up in is located in the center of the Duke's territory, so she's grown up hearing rumors about his power and his reputation with women. Isabelle is terrified to be sold to him, but she's trying not to lose hope just yet. After all, as someone with blue eyes and silver hair, she's blessed to receive the love of the goddess Isis. That's partly why the saintesses took her in and cared for her all these years. In a flashback from 13 years ago, we see Isabelle playing with one of the saintesses on the day of a festival. The whole territory was ready to celebrate, as Duke Cardiego was scheduled to return from the capital for the first time in years. Even though she wanted to go with all her heart, the saintesses didn't want her to attend. You see, their temple is technically aligned with the Pillsburg family, so the Cardiegos wouldn't have wanted to see them running around at their events. Wishing she had a family who would take her to see the fireworks, Isabelle prayed that night, begging the goddess to never leave her alone. And at just that moment, she spotted a figure outside, a small boy in the woods. Thinking he was hurt, Isabelle ran outside to help, and that was the first time she met Rix, crying quietly in the bushes. Clearly, our little girl wasn't very good at taking hints when she was younger, because she started chattering away and asking him all sorts of questions. Rix wasn't really in the mood to talk, and got even more irritated when Isabelle confused him for a girl. So he snapped at her and called her stupid, and before you know it, they were arguing. Isabelle probably would have given him hell if she hadn't noticed all the wounds on his body and the way he was shaking. She tried to get close enough to earn his trust and discovered that his parents had passed away, just like hers had abandoned her. Sounds pretty metal, but for some reason, Isabelle decided this was something fun to have in common and announced them as friends at once. Wow, she really is naturally positive. I didn't know 6-year-olds could trauma bond, but there you go. Rix, like any normal kid, thinks she's a bit of a freak for being so happy to hear that his parents are dead. But Isabelle is just happy that they have a reason to be friends. He does seem slightly less prickly now, but only slightly. Feeling more confident, Isabelle asks how he ended up here, since the temple is quite far from the village. Rix admits that he ran away from home. Before he can say any more, they both hear something rustling in the bushes and freeze. Not far away, 2 knights with the crest of the Cardiego family are searching the forest with their spears. The kids watch in silence as one reports to his commander. Clearly, they are looking for Rix, and seem to have poisoned him with some kind of paralyzing potion that has stopped his legs from working. Whoa! They weren't kidding when they said the Cardiegos were cruel. Isabelle is petrified, but she's more worried about Rix. She summons all her courage to hold his hand, promising to protect him from these people. She tells him to follow her, crawling away from the soldiers, while she remembers the day Saintess Maria gave her her necklace. You see, the necklace was given in exchange for a promise. A promise that Isabelle would never use magic. A promise that she broke that day for the sake of protecting Rix. She used her powers to summon the wind, making noises in the opposite direction so that the soldiers would run toward it and leave them alone. As it happens, Isabelle has always been able to use magic ever since she can remember. Now, I don't know how common it is for kids in this world to whip up a wind spirit like that, but something tells me this girl might be special for more than just her hair. Once the danger has passed, Rix asked her why she risked her life for his sake. Isabelle says they're friends now, and that's just what friends do. They help each other, and sometimes they hug each other. Sweet baby Rix says he's never been hugged, a shocking revelation to Isabelle, who decides to correct this immediately. He has his first ever hug with the pretty girl who saved him. While trying to sneak back into the temple, Isabelle is caught by Saintess Maria, and has to confess to her little adventure, leaving out the part about her using magic. The Saintess praises her for helping someone and allows her to bring him some warm tea and bread, since he doesn't seem to like being in the temple very much. Saintess Maria comes out herself to bring it, but drops the tray and tea when she sees Rix. She suddenly goes cold and tells Isabelle to come back at once. Even though he's just a boy, Rix seems to understand what's happening and asks for one last hug before he goes home. And they've been best friends ever since. They spent most of their childhood playing together, with Isabelle teaching him all the things he never got to do, like climbing trees and catching fish in the river. Saintess Maria wasn't happy at first, but in time she got over it and didn't make any effort to stop Rix from coming to visit every few weeks. Around the same time, a group of priests began to regularly visit the temple, including the evil priest Mateo. The nuns could probably tell they made her uncomfortable and always whisked Isabelle away during their visits. Nun Cecilia told her they were priests from the capital of the Pillsburg territory who came to check in on the temple and see how it was being run. Isabelle asked her about priest Mateo, who hadn't taken his eyes off her since he first walked in. Such a creep, that guy. Isabelle always felt scared when she saw him, so she hid in her room until he left. Years went by, and Rix and Isabelle continued to see one another. Their play dates turned into study dates, where he would bring her snacks while they did homework for Saintess Maria's lessons. One day, they were studying the history of the Empire and the 3 families. Rix became noticeably quieter when they got to the part about Cardiego, but didn't say anything. Then, their study session was interrupted by a young girl named Lavi, who clearly had a little crush on Rix. She was being taken to the Duke Cardiego's estate, and came to say goodbye to them both. She asked for some alone time with Rix and handed him a letter. Isabelle, who was watching from behind a tree, got all excited at the idea of her 2 best friends becoming boyfriend and girlfriend, but Rix turned her down with a firm refusal. Isabelle assumed that he really wasn't interested in girls, but I think we can all tell what was really going on. Sweet, clueless Isabelle. I'm starting to think she's just too pure for this world. After the confession, Lavi ran away crying, so Isabelle tried to talk some sense into Rix. She told him it was mean to put her down like that, and that dating her wouldn't have been such a bad idea. It accidentally slips out that she wants him to have more friends since he doesn't really play with anyone other than her. Rix looks upset, but I mean, it's true. He's clearly got trust issues, and even though Isabelle has lots of people to hang out with, he only has her. It wouldn't be so bad if he spent some time with other people. Only wants to spend time with one girl? Turns down other people even just as friends? What could that possibly mean? Fast forward a few more years, and Isabelle has reached the tender age of 13. She's grown a little more adventurous in the last few years and decides one night to slip off to the festival against the wishes of the temple maidens. Here comes a scene from just about every coming-of-age movie. Isabelle rolling up a blanket to stuff under her duvet, trying to make it look like she's in bed asleep. How much do you want to bet that doesn't work? Anyway, Isabelle is undeterred and heads out to meet Rix in the woods. He looks all dressed up for the festival, though he says he came straight from work. He's just become a mail boy, which seems appropriate given his outfit. Isabelle is full of excitement about the festival, and especially the fireworks. She's never seen them before and wants to pray beneath them, hoping that her wishes will be fulfilled. Her prayer is the same as always, that she will never be alone. Kind of a sad thing for a young girl to use her wishes on. Shouldn't someone her age be praying for a pony or something? Anyway, Rix admits that he's tempted to take up vocational training, which would mean he couldn't see her for about a half a year. He asks Isabelle for advice, though she seems hesitant to answer. Against all her wishes, she tells him to do what's best for him. If the training would make a difference in his life, then he should put everything else aside. Wow, that is really mature for a 13-year-old. I think I would have told him to drop everything and stay with me. The festival, which is held by the Cardiego family, is full of references to their blessing from Isis. Everyone is dressed up as ghosts or grim reapers, which is kinda cool. Literally seconds into the festival, Isabelle's purse gets stolen and Rix goes running off after the thief. Not wanting to get lost, she sits down to wait for him and overhears two villagers having a conversation about the Cardiego family. Apparently, the current Duke is attempting to usurp the throne, using his authority to oppress his subjects and his family so that no one will challenge his right to the crown. Especially a young nephew who is the true heir to the Duchy. What's that? A young heir with missing parents being forced into the background for a vicious uncle? Whoever could that be? With armed troops roaming the street, Isabelle doesn't feel safe alone. She goes off to try and find Rix and gets caught by a pair of drunk knights who mistake her for a Pillsbury because of her silver hair. Isabelle wriggles out of their grasp, but the knights are still approaching. That is, until one of them gets knocked out with a coin. Not totally sure about the physics of that, but okay. As you probably guessed, it's Rix, who somehow managed to retrieve her purse. Isabelle is shocked to see him so confident, no longer the little boy who cried in the woods. He can tell she's a little shaken, so he offers to take her home, missing out on the rest of the festival. On the way home, he makes his decision. He's going to take up the vocational training. Isabelle is sad not to see him for the next 6 months, but she knows it's the right decision. By a strange coincidence, that same year, Cardiego's true successor defeats his uncle and takes over the family, putting the territory back in order. How convenient. 6 months pass by pretty uneventfully for Isabelle. When Rix returns, he's taller and slimmer and seems far stronger too. I mean, 15 is still pretty young, but this kid sure does look like a man. Both of them feel different around each other now, a little more awkward than before. Rix even starts blushing when he looks at her, which is totally new. Not long after the reunion, an infectious disease called Blyden starts making the rounds in the village. The mortality rate is pretty low, so it's not all that dangerous, but it does keep the temple maidens very busy, looking after sick folk and cleaning and storing their belongings. While helping out, Isabelle comes across a book titled A Madam Won't Be Alone at Night, which makes her think of her parents. Every time the night falls, she can't help but feel lonely, missing the family she never had. That's why she prays so much. Nun Cecilia interrupts her moment of heartache, but Isabelle decides to keep the book and read it when she has a moment. The next day, her tummy and chest hurt, which could be the first symptoms of the Blyden disease. But she doesn't want to worry everyone, especially when today is the day she's supposed to see Rix. So she pretends it's all fine and heads to the village as usual to see her best friend. He can tell at once that something is wrong and seems extremely concerned. Isabelle does her best, but her symptoms have worsened throughout the day. So she decides to cut their time short and return to the temple, leaving poor Rix torn up. He wants to tell the temple maidens or take her to a hospital, but suddenly freezes when he sees blood on the bench. Ah, I see. Our little Isabelle is growing up at last. Well, that's a heck of a lot better than an infectious disease, but still, period pains are no joke. Isabelle honestly thinks she's going to die and ends up crying in front of the temple. The maidens find her there and explain to her that she's perfectly fine. She's not dying, she's just a woman. Although sometimes those two things feel the same, am I right, ladies? Once her period is about to end, the temple receives an important visit out of schedule for the usual priest from Pillsbury. Prince Matteo has come along this time, which strikes the fear of God into Isabelle. She has a terrible feeling that his unexpected visit is in some way related to her period, which is so messed up. There's also another reason he may have visited, as the current Empress and Emperor are reigning without an heir. The royal Pillsburg family needs someone to take over, or more explicitly, someone to make a baby. In this crazy empire, there are special standards set for choosing a woman to maintain the imperial lineage. The right girl needs to be the one who has the features of the goddess Isis. Someone like Isabelle. Oh, I see. It's all coming together now. That's why this Matteo guy has taken such a keen interest in her and why he cares so much about her period and her maidenhood. Ew! She decides to stay in her room that day and picks up the book she found from the Blyden victims. It opens up a whole new world for her. Isabelle quickly falls in love with reading and becomes the biggest bookworm in all the temple. Unfortunately, her new obsession makes her take big risks, picking books from the pile of unpurified possessions. She soon comes down with Blyden, her vision starts to get blurry, and she has to stay in bed to recover. Rix comes to visit her, of course, like the gentleman he is. Isabelle can't see all that well, and even though I'm pretty sure he shouldn't be touching a literal plague victim, Rix takes her in his arms and hugs her from behind. Aw, poor baby. He must have been so worried. First, he thought she was bleeding to death. Now she has an infectious disease. It's just one after another with this girl. He feeds her some kind of berry that clears up her vision, which surprises Rix. If that was all it took to cure it, she can't actually have had Blyden. Though, honestly, at this point, who knows? This girl's body is going through it. That's all anyone can tell. After she's finally recovered from the many ailments plaguing her, Isabelle continues to grow through her teenage years, loving romance novels and cherishing any time she gets to spend with Rix. We see her again at 19 years old when she visits a waterfall out in the forests. She doesn't seem to care at all about getting her dress wet and jumps straight in the river. Rix, on the other hand, is far too much of a gentleman to watch and wanders off to find her a towel, oblivious to the fact that there's one in the basket. He's such a cutie. Once Isabelle is all dried up and showing a little less skin, she joins Rix on the banks. Digging through the picnic basket, he is surprised to find a bottle of wine, which apparently Isabelle snuck in. This girl has become a troublemaker right before our eyes. I guess living with nuns all your life would probably make you a little naughty. Rix is surprised that she brought it and asks if she's ever drank before. Obviously, she hasn't, but that doesn't stop her from pretty much downing the entire bottle herself. Whoa, girl! Steady on! The next thing Isabelle knows, the night has fallen and she's lying in a field with Rix. As usual, she doesn't take the most obvious romantic opportunity ever handed to her and asks him what happened, since she can't remember a thing. Oh good, she's a lightweight and an idiot. Rix keeps teasing her, so clearly something pretty big happened while she was drunk. It's got cold all of a sudden, so they snuggle close together, and Rix tells her that her wish came true. She's not alone anymore, and he'll make sure to always be by her side. It's such a sweet sentiment, but as usual, Isabelle ruins it by asking him to become a monk. Since she lives at the temple, she thinks if he becomes a monk, they can be together forever. And besides, she says he has no interest in women and no sexual desire, so it's perfect. Oh my god, this girl. She wouldn't know a punch if it hit her in the face. Even though she wants him to be a monk, Isabelle has no intention of maintaining her purity and becoming a saintess. It wouldn't suit her, and besides, she wants to get married someday. Rix is a little startled to hear this and asks what kind of man she would want. She begins to reel off this impossible list of conditions, including sleeping naked except for some dandelion leaves and being the most capable man in a mask. See guys, these are the consequences of reading too many romance novels. But instead of telling her she's crazy, Rix tells her never to get married unless she finds exactly that man. Someone absolutely perfect. A few days later, the Duke Cardiego officially makes his claim for the position of the emperor, which so far, the Pillsburg family has been holding on to. But without an heir, their grip on the throne has been slipping, and the young duke is well respected and powerful. I feel like by now, you guys must have guessed who we're talking about here. But if you hadn't, here's a big fat clue. When we fast forward to the present, after Isabelle has proposed a fake marriage to Rix, we see him walking into a room full of butlers, still wearing her necklace. He tells them to prepare for a grand party. There's been a proposal, and he doesn't intend to refuse. Wait, but I'm so confused. If he's the real Duke Cardiego, then who is trying to buy Isabelle? And why were they using his name? The young Duke has lots of demands for the ceremony. He wants lilies and white roses everywhere and new dresses for his soon-to-be bride. He even wants gems and gloves which match every outfit. Well, if this is the way he's going to treat our Isabelle, she should have proposed sooner. The poor butler Bill is very flustered with all these grand requests. But more than anything, he's excited. All the family staff have been hoping for this day for a very long time. They're also quite excited to put to rest all those rumors about his lower body not functioning. But, that's a separate matter. Bill is honored to be the butler to the next emperor, and Rix tells him it's all because of Isabelle. Without her help, always standing by his side and hugging him when he cried, he would never have ended up here. The reason he managed to get his uncle ousted from the family was because Isabelle said she likes strong men. He was always planning to propose to her after the election for emperor was over, but in the end, she was the one who asked. Although, I'm not sure this kid realizes Isabelle is looking for a fake marriage as a way to get out of being sold. Like, this isn't quite the big romantic gesture you think it is, buddy. Because he wasn't the one to propose, he wants the wedding to be extra luxurious. He has also tasked Bill with finding Saintess Maria, who has disappeared for quite some time now. They don't know if she was taken or is in hiding, but either way, there's not a trace of the woman who raised Isabelle. Meanwhile, Isabelle is back at the temple thinking about her new life with Rix when suddenly, she spots 3 shadows at her window. 3 men in masks and hoods appear, holding a bright jewel and some rope. Uh-oh, well, this can't be good. The men are ordered to capture her, even if it means they have to cut off a limb. Isabelle is terrified and falls to the floor. It looks like they're about to grab her when suddenly a burning golden chain whips through the men, killing them instantly. And you'll never guess who's behind it. It's Priest Mateo, the guy we thought was evil all along. Kneeling in a pool of the bandit's blood, Isabelle is shocked to discover that a servant of the goddess has used his divine powers for murder. And not just any servant, but the one she fears the most. He extends a hand toward her, smiling kindly. At this point, I'm wondering if this is all just a setup to get her to come quietly. I mean, he can't be a good guy if he literally just slaughtered 3 people right in front of her. When Isabelle doesn't immediately follow him, Priest Mateo uses his divine powers to handcuff her and drag her through the temple. Okay, so he's definitely still evil. Where's Rix when you need him? He throws her in a basement, planning to keep her hidden until he can hand her over to the Iron Baron, the one who paid so much to have her. He's still pretending that this is all for her safety and says he'll return for her when it's safe to come out. But Isabelle isn't stupid. She yells at him and says she knows he's trying to sell her. Mateo threatens her, saying that if she doesn't come quietly, the Duke Cardiego will rain down hell upon this temple. When the Saintesses come back to find their sacred place in ruin, they will resent her. Yeah, but not as much as they'll resent you, evil priest dude. Isabelle points out that no matter how much she loves the temple, she loves her life far more. It's not worth giving that over to a tyrant who's obsessed with her virginity. Isabelle knows that she will have to get past Mateo to get out of here alive, but she has never used her magic to hurt people before. What if she messes up? Ironically, the thing that gives her the strength to use it is Rix, thinking of the life he's ready to give her if she can escape. So, using all her energy, she summons a thread of golden light, which doesn't look like much against the priest's crackling whip. At first, he laughs at her. If that's all she can summon, he says she's far less special than he thought. But Isabelle ignores him and continues to conjure, pulling light and what looks like flames from her fingertips. Seconds later, the priest's robes are on fire. Take that, you nasty man! Unfortunately, the flames aren't strong enough. She tries to run away, but Mateo grabs her, slamming her against the bars of the basement. But he lets go when the fire begins to work its way up his robes to his utter shock. It doesn't make sense. There's no way her magic could already be this strong. Mateo thinks she must have signed a deal with the devil, but the truth is he was wrong. There is something special about Isabelle. More than one thing, given everything we've seen so far. He starts burning up right in front of her as poor Isabelle is forced to watch the flames take over his body. She is also shocked at her own abilities, especially since the priest tried to put the fire out and found it impossible. Clearly, she is far more capable than she realized. But now isn't the time for magical revelations, Isabelle. Now is the time to run! She stands on shaky legs, trying to get past him. Mateo doesn't give in so easily and lunges towards her. He's just about to grab her when something slices him from behind and he falls to the ground, still on fire. A mysterious voice from behind him tells her to look away. Melted flesh isn't a pretty sight for a young lady, especially on the body of a depraved priest. The figure lays down a cloth to cover the body from her sight and apologizes for coming so late. Is it Rix? Has he come to save her and reveal his true identity at last? As it turns out, he hasn't. Standing beside Mateo's singed body is a small group of figures emanating such darkness that they cannot possibly be human. They tell Isabelle that they belong to the underworld, which can only mean they serve the Cardiego family. Isabelle thinks she must have lost the protection of the goddess Isis if she was nearly killed and is now being faced with strange warriors from a different realm. It's all been a bit much for her to handle, so when they announce that they're taking her to the Cardiego mansion, she faints on the spot. Can you blame her? She's just seen 4 people die in one night, all fighting over the chance to kidnap her. Give the poor girl a break. Meanwhile, Rix has been waiting impatiently in his mansion, worrying about why it's taken so long to bring Isabelle to his side. He summons Al, a servant who appears from nothing more than shadow, and asks him to report on the situation. These servants of death are known as Leafs. Al, who is one of the Leafs who rescued Isabelle, explains the whole situation. How she fainted, how her magic killed Mateo, and how 3 people had broken in and tried to kidnap her. After all the mess, the shadow servants decided to put her to bed since the saintesses were also returning. Rix is frustrated that she hasn't been brought back, but more than anything, he's shocked to hear that she used her magic. And not just used it, but managed to kill someone. It was obvious to everyone since she was little that there was something special about the girl. Isabelle's likeness to the goddess Isis made her more than likely to have special powers, but since she's been trained rigorously not to use them, it should have been a secret. Rix decides he will have to go in and take his bride himself. Before he's dismissed, Al hands over a letter that was found in Isabelle's bedroom, which manages to make even the Duke Cardiego blush. Aww, he's still our little Rix under that stern demeanor. Later that evening, Isabelle is visited by 2 of the nuns in her bedroom, checking in to see if she's all right. Sister Cecilia is one of them, and she seems particularly concerned about everything she's endured. She brings Isabelle a bowl of hot stew. The saintesses have all used their magic to put up a barrier around the temple, so now no one can hurt Isabelle for at least the next 2 days. She's still being tended to by the nuns when a mysterious figure walks into her room. He has some sort of face covering and a necklace that resembles Isabelle's. He mentions something about priest Mateo and then suddenly demands that Isabelle come home with him. What? Who the heck is this douche? Apparently, this is the one who bought her, and apparently, those 3 intruders who tried to capture her yesterday are his men. Clearly, he's not a Cardiego, and he somehow managed to get past the barrier. So then, who is he? Before anyone can find out any more about this arrogant noble, a beam of light appears beneath Isabelle's feet, and she is transported to a basement beneath the temple. Okay, anyone else totally lost? There's something serious going on here, I just have no idea what it is. She gets moving, trying to find a way out. But at the first door she opens, the masked man is waiting right behind it, and his sword is very much drawn. He grabs her by the neck, lifting her into the air as he tells Isabelle to follow his rules from now on. Before he can do her any harm, some kind of dark magic sneaks into the room and separates them. It lifts the noble up instead, strangling him midair. It's then that the real Cardiego appears, in a mask of course, asking the man if he is the one known as the Iron Baron. Oh, now it makes sense. The Iron Baron was the guy that Mateo made a deal with. Isabelle recognizes instantly that this is Duke Cardiego, though she doesn't know that he's also her childhood best friend, and the only reason she survived the past 2 nights. But how did he get through the magic barrier? Is he just that powerful? After the Iron Baron is put to rest, the Leafs come in to clear up the mess. Isabelle does have a brief moment where she wonders if this guy is Rix, but she doesn't quite connect the dots. Bless her little heart. Isabelle asks why he saved her, and the Duke answers that she will be his wife. Come on, Izzy. Is that tiny mask really enough to make you this clueless? Isabelle tries to protest, but the Duke refuses, claiming he has already made up his mind. He contemplates just taking off the mask and telling her the truth, but he doesn't want to risk her changing her mind about the marriage. Overwhelmed by it all, Isabelle faints again, because apparently that's just her thing now. When she wakes up, she's in the Duke's palace, surrounded by beauty and splendor. It doesn't look anything like she expected for the Duke of Darkness, but that doesn't change everything she's heard about him. She doesn't want to marry a stranger, and most of all, she doesn't want to be involved with someone impotent, like the rumors say. There's nothing for it. She's got to run away. Meanwhile, Rix is debating telling her the truth again, but it's those exact reasons that hold him back. He doesn't want to talk about the rumors of his lower body because ew, and he doesn't want to call off the marriage if she finds out the Duke is her best buddy. So instead of just being honest, he comes up with this incredibly convoluted plan to get close to her, playing the character of the Duke and Rix, making excuses to be around her and spend time together until one day he can whip off the mask and she'll already be madly in love with him. Yeah, right, Rix. I'm not sure who's read more romance novels, him or Isabelle. He puts on some normal clothes and visits Isabelle in her room, claiming to work here as a gardener. Oh my god, he's such a terrible liar. He brings in some dinner for her, giving Isabelle a chance to ask him some much-needed questions about the castle. She asks him to leave, worried that if the gardener was caught with the bride-to-be of a duke, he would be punished. Yeah, Rix, how are you gonna work your way out of that one? Even though he tells her the Duke is nothing like the rumors, Isabelle won't be convinced. She says if she had to spend even one night with someone as cruel and impotent as him, she would die. Oh, I can't watch. It's too painful. He does his best to convince her that the Duke wants only the best. He even asks Rix to come here himself and look after her. Isabelle seems to calm down, and he asks her to have a little faith. Everything is going to be fine. She's safer here than anywhere else in the world. He tucks her into bed, and once she's asleep, the Duke bids her goodnight, feeling his love grow more than he ever thought was possible. As he walks back to his room, Rix makes himself a promise that somehow he will make her fall in love with him. The next morning, Isabelle is a lot less panicky. After all, that was the first night in quite some time where she wasn't awoken by kidnappers or slave traders. Must be nice, all this peace and quiet she's getting. Her new maids introduce themselves, which is exciting since it's the first time Isabelle has ever had someone waiting on her. A young girl named Rosa is assigned to her as her personal maid, another step in convincing her that the Duke will take care of his honored guest. Especially because Rosa is one of the shadow people who came to save her from Priest Matteo. So I guess in this house, maids double as bodyguards. Rosa gets her all dressed up, styling her hair and providing the prettiest little outfits. The Duke also provided a gorgeous bouquet of flowers for her. Not bad for the Duke of the Underworld, huh? Bill the butler takes her on a tour of the mansion, including a gorgeous garden. But Isabelle can hardly pay attention. She's slowly working out the similarities between her best friend and her soon-to-be husband. After all, the bouquet contained lilies, which Rix knows she loves. Plus, Rix was born in the year of the lunar eclipse, just like the Duke. You see, she's got this far, but I guarantee you it will take at least 10 more chapters for the penny to drop. She asks the butler to take her to the library, which is just as enormous and grand as the rest of the castle. She dismisses the servants, hoping to take a look around herself and find some more clues about the Duke. She soon finds a book detailing the Cardiego family history. Bingo! Hoping to find the real name of the Duke, she scrolls to the current heir and gets exactly what she's looking for. Duke Cardiego's real name is Rix. If she can't figure it out from that, she's hopeless. Thankfully, Isabelle has enough brain cells to make the connection. With shaking hands, she drops the book, trying to comprehend how her gentle childhood bestie could possibly be the monstrous Duke of Rumor. I mean, at this point, we've seen and heard enough to suggest that the rumors aren't all true. But the biggest factor is this, that all the years they've been friends, he has never once told her the truth. And that whole gardener shtick? Yeah, she's definitely not going to trust him now. Hoping for a coincidence of incredible proportions, Isabelle goes to pick up another book, hoping to check the birthdays of Duke Cardiego and her dear beloved Rix. When suddenly, all around her bloom these pretty blue butterflies, which make her stop. The maids come rushing over to check on her, but Isabelle isn't harmed. Actually, she's being visited by the goddess Isis, who is by her side right this second. Overcome with emotion and shock, Isabelle faints. Again. This is not the welcome news to her fiancé, who turns into the Duke of the Underworld the moment he hears that she collapsed. He comes to the library where she is now resting, wondering how someone so fragile could live in a world like this. Yeah, good point. When she was younger, she was so adventurous and cheeky, and nowadays all she does is topple over. I mean, granted, there have been a few murders, a kidnapping attempt, and a pretty big secret revealed, but come on, Isabelle, we've got stuff to do. The Duke spots the family history tome beside her and realizes what must have happened. He orders the servants to take the books to her room and dismisses them. He'll take care of her himself. As he watches over her, Rix can't tell if he's more nervous or excited. It must be a relief to have the truth out in the open, but I have a feeling he's seriously underestimating how upset she's going to be. One of his shadow people materializes from the darkness, a young boy named Keel, who looks like a carbon copy of Rix when he was younger. He refers to the Duke as Hyung, so maybe he's a younger brother? Keel is very curious about Isabelle and isn't afraid to irritate his Hyung trying to get a better look at her. He keeps asking about eating her as some kind of sacrifice, which is freaky. Gonna take a wild guess and say he's not a human kid in that case. Turns out Keel is actually a Grim Reaper named Kierkegaard, who is bound to take on the same form as his master when summoned. Since Rix summoned him at the age of 7, that's what he looks like. They've been together a long time, so Keel takes a lot of pride in the Duke and a healthy interest in his love life. He wants his master to look good in front of all the other Grim Reapers, so he tries to give him a little bit of advice concerning Isabelle. Relationship advice from a Grim Reaper? Sure, what could go wrong? He explains that the rumors about his lower body are still pretty rife, at least in the underworld, and it's all because he never had a lover. If they want to put a stop to all this gross chatter about his ding-dong, he needs to act like a bad boy from the comics to win her heart. Rix doesn't listen to his 7-year-old sidekick. He has a new mission for him. He wants Keel to take care of the Iron Baron's soul and gives him 10 days to do, well, whatever it is that Grim Reapers do with a soul. When Isabelle finally rejoins the land of the living, she is back in her bedroom. While trying to sort through her thoughts and everything that happened yesterday, she is interrupted by her maids, who ask her to come out and get some fresh air. Apparently, tomorrow is the day of the carnival, and Rosa is worried about not being able to enjoy the festivities because of her very emotional journey over the last few days. Poor Isabelle is still trying to figure out how no one else saw the literal figure of Isis by her side in the library, but I guess she just has to pretend that everything is fine. Rosa brings her a pretty little cake to try and get her spirits back up, which includes a very rare kind of fruit that grows only in the Cardiego Palace. As such, it's known as the Cardiego berry. It acts as a form of pain relief that can continue acting for over a week. Does that sound like a drug to anyone else? The Cardiego family don't have the most positive of vibes. Maybe she shouldn't be digging into any of their fruit just yet? But apparently, the Duke specifically asked the staff to make it for her, since it also lessens nightmares and helps the mind to relax. Okay, yeah, it's definitely a druggy berry. The next day, the carnival is in full swing. Every single detail is designed for Isabelle, based on all the things she's told Rick about how she wishes to meet her future romantic partner. The ball is set up with delicacies and crystal chandeliers and lots of gorgeous guests. One particular guest has followed her instructions to a T, wearing a mask and carrying a huge diamond ring in his pocket, just the way Isabelle used to dream of when they were younger. Oh my god, is he going to propose? I hope she says yes! The lady of the hour arrives looking fabulous as per usual, and the man of the manor walks towards her with a smile. It's a weird moment for Isabelle, knowing for the first time that the Duke Cardiego is her closest friend, and finally noticing all the similarities. The Duke takes her hand and asks her for a dance. Isabelle is so stunned she can't say no. While they're dancing, she asks if he is really Rix, and reaches out to pull off his mask. Before her is standing Rix, the boy she's known all her life. Only his hair is neat and his clothes are gorgeous, and he looks far more confident than she's ever seen him before. It's not the craziest transformation. I mean, come on, that mask wasn't hiding much. But the realization comes crashing down on Isabelle all at once, and her head starts to spin. Rick summons Rosa, asking her to find a more comfortable pair of shoes for his fiancé, giving her a moment to get her act together in private. Once she's gone, a different sort of revelation attacks Rix, who starts blushing when he thinks about the way she said his name. While little Keels is grooving in the background, Rix calls for a glass of water to clear his mind. Wait, so will he propose or won't he? While he's freaking out about the wedding that's supposed to happen in just 2 weeks, Isabelle is slowly remembering all the different lies he's told her over the years. When she returns to the dance floor, she asks Rix to come out onto the balcony for a chat. Uh-oh. Maybe best to save the ring for another night, buddy. I don't think this is going to be as romantic as you think it will. Isabelle is smiling sweetly, but she plans to give him a good whack the moment they're alone. Once they're outside, she closes the door and turns to him. And then it all comes out. She asks why he kept his secret for so many years. and the Duke explains that Cardiego and Pillsbury aren't exactly friends. He didn't want someone residing at their temple to know the truth. Then he just couldn't find the right time. For 10 years? Yeah, I don't buy that one bit. Surprisingly, Isabelle does. Rix manages to soften her by asking, isn't she more curious about their engagement? At this point, it seems like she's just glad she ended up with a guy who didn't buy her. As it happens, it was always the Iron Baron who bought her, but he worked under the name of Cardiego for protection. Obviously, Priest Mateo was involved too, but Rix thinks there was someone else, someone who was acting above them both. But he reassures her there's nothing to worry about. He'll take care of everything and ensure her safety above all else. Remembering that she should probably still be mad, Isabelle tells him that from now on, they have to be honest with each other. That means the fake wedding is off. That's when Rix gets down on one knee, claiming he has no intention of breaking off their engagement. Ah! It's happening! Okay, everybody, stay calm. Rix pulls out a ring box, asking her to take a look. It is just like he said, a beautiful diamond ring with Afrix Cardiego engraved on it. Isabelle is shocked, but he tells her she can't say no. She's the one who proposed first, after all. Even though I don't think that's how proposals work, Rix saves it by promising to do all the things she's ever dreamed about. Cooking for her and looking after her and having slow Sunday mornings together. As he's telling her this, he slips the ring on her finger and asks her to take his last name. Whoa, that's a real fairy tale romance right there. Isabelle hasn't actually said anything or even opened her mouth in a good few minutes, so Rix asks her what she's thinking the day she proposed to him. She kind of avoids the question, saying he was the best option because he knows her the best. Which isn't really what the Duke wanted to hear. He explains that he's rushed the whole wedding process because he really thought she wanted to marry him. Although, I don't know how he got that impression. Didn't you hear about all the people trying to kidnap her? I don't think romance was at the front of her mind that day. Kind of seems like Rix is playing up the whole poor puppy strategy on purpose. He even threatens to call off the whole wedding immediately if she doesn't want it. Of course, Isabelle assures him that she very much does want to get married, and gives him a hug just to prove it. The next day, Isabelle is finally feeling confident enough to walk through the mansion without fear of ghosts or mystery masked dukes. The maids already look up to her as the lady who tamed their fearsome master. She's also introduced to Count Grey, who is the Duke's assistant and will be teaching her how to blend in as a noble lady. She's not had any experience of the socialite world and is a bit nervous about introducing herself and explaining her background. After all, she's an orphan. She doesn't even have a last name. Count Grey warns her that the Duke's wedding will be the event of the season. She will have to memorize everyone's names and titles, which is no small feat. He also lets her look through the list of people who won't be attending the wedding. Mainly the other members of the Cardiego family, one of whom is the Iron Baron. Apparently, he's not dead, but was very nearly killed and stripped of his title. There's also Booth Cardiego, Rix's uncle, and presumably the guy he usurped, who is very much dead now. After their lesson, Count Grey has only good things to say about the soon-to-be Duchess, which makes Rix insanely proud. He's still grinning and blushing when Keel walks in with a report on the Iron Baron's business. Apparently, the scheme to buy Isabelle goes way higher than they realized. In fact, it has something to do with the late Duke Booth Cardiego. The plot thickens. Obviously, that's not a name Rix likes to hear, especially if it has anything to do with Isabelle. On the Duke's command, Keel summons Baron Iron to his office at once. The man arrives tied up, on his knees, and shaking. He immediately starts pleading for his life, but the Duke is in no mood for chit-chat. Straight away, he asks who ordered him to attack the temple, and the Baron answers that it was Booth. Huh? I thought this guy was dead. Rix even says he killed his uncle himself, but apparently his soul is still alive somewhere. The Baron made some sort of agreement with the former Duke, and so when he appeared in his dream one night, he had no choice but to carry out his orders. But the confusing bit is that Booth told him to kidnap a temple girl and take her to the Pillsbury Palace, which doesn't make any sense. If Booth was trying to get back at his nephew, why would he send her to the Pillsburgs? Of course, you guys may have guessed it already, but there are more than a few people who already suspect that Isabelle may have Pillsbury blood. Of all the families, they have the closest ties to the goddess, and as we know, Isabelle has traits that make it clear she has been blessed by Isis. As another coincidence, the Leafs have noticed blue butterflies flying over the mansion, which is a symbol of the goddess. Does this mean we're finally going to get some context on her family history? Because come on, there's no way an orphan abandoned at a temple with blue eyes and silver hair doesn't have some secret story. Speaking of the noble family, we get our first sight of the Pillsburg territory when Roy Khan Pillsburg, a central figure of their nobility, storms into a room full of advisors. He is worried about the current emperor, who is now a 70-year-old man with failing health and no successors. Apparently, 15 years ago there was some kind of curse which swept the nobility, killing all officials except the current emperor. That's why Pillsburg has no one left to take the throne. But the throne is the least of their problems. If they can't find a successor, the whole family could die out. Fortunately for them, Roy Khan is far too ambitious to let that happen. He has gone to drastic measures to take a piece of jewelry from the Cardiego family, using its dark power to locate none other than, you guessed it, Isabelle. I guess she must have Pillsburg blood in her after all, because this crazy Roy Khan guy wants to marry her in order to secure his bloodline and gain a son who will become emperor one day. As if that wasn't creepy enough, he also doesn't seem to care that she's getting married to Cardiego. All he wants is a son born from her body. Doesn't matter how. Now, if that's not a red flag, I don't know what is. This one is a bona fide villain. Meanwhile, Isabelle is totally aware of these plans. She is attending her first ever nobility council meeting by her fiancé's side, surrounded by a group of arrogant nobles who are clearly looking down on her. It's a good thing our girl can't be taken down so easily. By now, she's a master at using sweet smile and a sharp tongue to stand her ground. One of the biggest concerns they seem to have is how much the wedding is going to cost. Apparently, there are some doubts about spending so much on some orphan from a temple. She basically challenges the Viscount who made the claim, saying that a region like his could never produce so many pearls naturally. Therefore, he must have bought them cheap from other vendors, or even on the black market. So Isabelle suggests they cut down on the number of pearls they import, and the Viscount is so embarrassed that he shuts up completely. I have a feeling she's going to make a very good duchess. Determined to work on her other strengths, Isabelle heads back to her room to practice her magic. Naturally, she's pretty strong, but she doesn't seem to improve no matter how much she practices. She considers reading more books to help her train, and suddenly remembers the book she was touching when the goddess appeared before her, that day in the library. Surprisingly, it's a book of Pillsburg scripture, so it's a little suspicious that it wound up in the Cardiego family history section. The moment she opens it, another apparition flies out, surrounded by all those blue butterflies she keeps seeing. Immediately, Isabelle closes the book and returns to the library, hoping to put it back where it belongs. She doesn't believe that it's really the goddess, even though the apparition continues to call her and ask if she has abandoned the Earth Goddess. She even knows about Saintess Maria and uses her name to try and persuade her. At this point, Isabelle is certain this is a demon. To try and distract herself from the voice in her head, she opens up one of her favorite smutty romance novels and starts reading a particularly explicit passage. Only when they get to the steamy part, she can't help but imagine Rix in the male lead's place. Looks like all those romantic gestures are finally paying off, although it's not welcome to Isabelle, who's really freaked out by the image. While the blue butterfly is hovering around her, Keel appears and introduces himself for the first time. Isabelle thinks he's adorable and has no idea that he's secretly a god from the underworld in a little boy's body. He's curious to find out why the butterflies keep following her, and also to follow up on his own suspicions about her Pillsburg heritage. But before he can ask even one question, Rix turns up with a stormy expression, unhappy to see Isabelle doting on his servant. I guess this is the beginning of his possessive husband era. Keel quickly climbs off her lap, while the Duke explains that Keel is more than 200 years old, capable of taking on many different forms. Never one to miss an opportunity, he turns it into a chance to ask whether Isabelle likes children and mentions not so subtly that he could be the father of her kids. Nice one, Rix. Very sly. After their conversation, Isabelle and Keel leave the library, giving Rix a chance to talk to the ghostly presence of the goddess, who seems to be attached to that book. The goddess confirms that Isabelle is the last of the Pillsburg bloodline. We saw that one coming, didn't we? Unfortunately, because of the blessing of Isis, that means Isabelle has a big role to play in the Empire. Kinda throws a spanner into Rix's plan to get married and live happily ever after. Despite complicating things, Isis does have Isabelle's best interests at heart. She warns the Duke that someone will attempt to ambush her soon after their marriage and asks him to protect her. The day of the wedding soon arrives. Every detail is beautiful, and the Duke doesn't look too shabby either. There are pearls, lilies, and peacocks and wine flowing by the gallon. The only problem is that the Saintesses might not be able to attend, as many of them are still recovering from injuries from the Iron Baron incident. Despite that, things should all go off without a hitch. Even though it's bad luck, Rix walks in on his bride in her wedding dress and is completely stunned by her beauty. So stunned that he's a little worried that someone might challenge him to a duel for her hand in marriage. Calm down, Rix. I'm pretty sure no one would dare face off with the Duke of the Underworld, even if it was for someone as pretty as Isabelle. Isabelle notices Rix being a bit upset, so she asks him if something's wrong. Of course there isn't. Rix wants Isabelle to stay by his side throughout the wedding, including if she suddenly wants for something. Not because he's expecting attackers again, but because he wants to be the only one who sees her smile. He reasons now. He's truly her husband, as he takes Isabelle's hand for a kiss. This makes Isabelle's heart flutter. Soon, the arrival of the soon-to-be Duke and Duchess Cardiego is proclaimed to be joined in holy matrimony. As they reach the chapel for their marriage, Isabelle notices the abundant crowd, and the venue is decorated with flowers and pearls. Just how she likes it. Something she confirms to Rix. Rix then slips the wedding ring onto her finger, and a beaming smile appears on her face as Rix promises to be the best husband there is. Afterwards, Rix talks with Bill while admiring his ring. He's truly happy about the wedding, but admittedly isn't concerned about the circumstances that allowed him to be the one with Isabelle. Also, Rix gets informed that there's no worthy news of late. If the Pillsburg attacks, per the goddess, it'll be before or after the wedding. Still, Rix has some reservations about the goddess despite its allegiance to Isabelle. Regardless, he instructs Bill to be vigilant as he heads back. Suddenly, he hears gossip of women who berate Isabelle's mysterious past, and that he'd been duped into marrying the supposedly dumb Isabelle. Oh boy, anger flashes in Rix's eyes. Meanwhile, Isabelle's waiting for Rix to rejoin the reception in a secluded balcony with her maid. Frankly, Cardiego weddings are more about drinking, hence the number of drunk guests. Isabelle also realizes that it's Rix's first public appearance without his mask, explaining the people's increased interest with them both. Afterwards, the maid leaves to fetch Isabelle a blanket. It's her first alone time in a long while, which she usually spent stargazing. She looks at her diamond ring, gladdened by the memory of Rix remembering her wish for diamonds since they were kids. As Isabelle reminisces more on Rix, a drunken lady stumbles on the balcony. However, this lady proceeds to badmouth Isabelle because of her nameless status, since she doesn't recognize her, and says she missed the chance of seducing the Duke had she known of his good looks despite his rumored lower body issues. She's the one Rix heard from the previous chapter. Isabelle lets her finish before introducing herself while also stating she knows her as Lily Latour, the youngest of Viscount Latour who'd been rejected by Rix 3 times. Utterly embarrassed, Lily tries to compose herself, but Isabelle instead suggests she get more wine. To top it off, she also says none of the Duke's supposed lower body issues are true. Suddenly, Rix enters the balcony, not angry but smiling proud of Isabelle. Lily frantically leaves, not that the couple noticed since Rix caressed Isabelle's face. Now married, Rix gains the confidence to admit he's always seen her as more than a friend, and kisses her on the forehead before heading to the reception. There, Iris in butterfly form and Sir Kiel note Isabelle's awkward, flustered demeanor. Kiel tries to drink, but is reprimanded by Iris. He does question people's preference for Isabelle, and Iris assures him she's protecting Isabelle because of a promise. Still wary, Kiel turns his attention to Bill, who strictly says he can't relax as he's, weirdly enough, judged the wedding night to be the most important of all. Isabelle is lost in thought about Rix's confession while taking a bath after their wedding. For her, it's always been brotherly love for the frail Rix back then, but the kiss he gave her earlier didn't feel like that of a sibling, like the one she gets from her sisters. Iris finds her like that, though primarily she's there to convince Isabelle again to accept her. Isabelle asks for her to leave since she scares the Reapers as well, noting it's been a while since Iris asked her. Iris then warns Isabelle, not of the impending attack, but of Rix regarding their wedding night. Sure enough, the Reapers attending Isabelle help her prepare for it. Meanwhile, Bill is up to mischief, taking old towels from Rix after his bath to prepare him as well. Thankfully, Kiel's there to find some for Rix, though the latter doesn't accept the former's offer of a bathrobe. Sensing Rix's motive, Kiel leaves to stay on guard, but a moment later he returns to warn Rix, who's overthinking about the wedding night, of attackers invading. Immediately, Rix rushes to Isabelle and is initially shocked to see blood on the bathtub. He's relieved to find that Isabelle's unharmed and the blood is from an attacker Isabelle accidentally disposed of. He does, however, hide Isabelle and himself in the closet while the Reapers deal with the attackers. And there, Isabelle finally notices Rix's handsomeness, though he warns her to keep her hands from venturing even lower lest he lose focus on his spell. Man, the tension's sky high! The Reapers are supported by their king, Kielgor, in their defense. Kiel recognizes and is surprised by the involvement of the Heavenly Army, the Pillsburg's forces. Kiel's powers return briefly, much to his men's delight, and they together with the Underworld King defend Rix and Isabelle. Speaking of, the couple's still awkwardly cuddling while hiding. On top of the intimate tension, that is. Rix reveals that the army's there to take Isabelle away, because she's of Pillsburg blood and she's Iris's chosen one. This is further confirmed when the intruders enter the room they're in, on the orders to find Isabelle and the necklace, Iris's tears. Hilariously, the couple looks at the necklace now hanging on Rix's neck, and frantically removes it, though Rix is glad Isabelle's getting close to him. Frankly, Isabelle forgot about the necklace's importance, or just didn't realize it. Unfortunately, an unsuspecting attacker finds the two, and Rix swiftly moves to defend Isabelle. However, as Rix fends off the attackers, Isabelle channels Iris, the goddess hated by the Heavenly Army, in order to threaten them nicely to leave, with the purest smile on her face. That's gotta be the nicest way of telling someone off. Finally, the threat's averted, and the palace is in tip-top squeaky clean state, thanks to the Reapers. But as Bill believes, Rix is now in the most important part, the passionate first night of newlyweds. His enthusiasm creeps Kiel out, who asks him and the rest to return to their posts. Meanwhile, Rix is hard at work setting everything up with little details to Isabelle's liking, such as no candles. He's so absorbed in thinking that he doesn't notice Isabelle come in and is surprised. She questions why he's still in his towel, to which he replies he sleeps like that. Anyway, the couple climbs into bed, with Isabelle relieved that her anxious feelings have dissipated. She does, however, wrap the semi-naked Rix with blankets to prevent him from getting sick, much to his amusement. Isabelle starts getting drowsy, though she's genuinely sorry the night isn't the passion-filled romance that Rix might expect. But she's feeling safe and content because of Rix's warmth. Before falling asleep, though, she praises Rix's strength for protecting her. However, something clicks in Isabelle's mind. If Rix is so strong, why'd he let kids bully him from before? So Isabelle proceeds to beat her new husband for pretending, so much so that everyone in the palace hears Rix's cries. The following morning, the Reapers gladly serve the couple food, though they note Rix's tired look. Still, Isabelle's happy seeing the warm change towards everyone's mood. Kiel, however, expresses newfound shame after Rix's wedding night fiasco. Actually, Rix didn't get much sleep because of Isabelle's sleeping antics, and more so because of her beauty. So Duke Cardiego, the might of the underworld, proceeds to sleep on the couch. Later in his office, despite admitting Isabelle's terrible sleeping habits, Rix is still happy he gets to wake up to Isabelle's beauty. Kiel makes it hard on him by teasing him of his apparent like of getting beaten by his wife, to the annoyance of Rix, who pinches Kiel's cheek. Well, Rix doesn't care about this new rumor anyway. Meanwhile, Isabelle's at a room's entrance looking for Iris. Apparently, the goddess had taken human form and had been crying because of Isabelle's actions. Bill had found her entering this room. So Isabelle wants to make amends by bringing her flowers. Soon, Iris lets her in, and to her surprise, the goddess's human form is of unrivaled beauty. However, Iris makes her disappointment known about using her magic to tell people off. But upon seeing Isabelle's remorseful crying face, Iris immediately forgives her, even conjuring butterflies to comfort what she lovingly calls her baby. More importantly, she presents Isabelle with the blue gems called Stones of Succession. Iris got it from the Heavenly Army, and they are used to differentiate those with Pillsburg blood and people with Iris's blessing. Iris explains Isabelle's necklace was designed to control the wearer's magic, She had to do so to prevent the army finding her easily. Iris then asks Isabelle to touch her necklace with the stone. Initially, a surge of dizziness courses through Isabelle, but soon she's surprised that it turns into a comforting feeling, like it unlocked something in her. Iris then tells Isabelle to try using the tiniest bit of magic. Isabelle complied, igniting a small flame from her fingertips. But soon, it grew too strong that it blew off the door of the room, surprising two passing Reapers. After Isabelle apologizes to the surprised but proud Reapers, Iris explains that Isabelle's magic that was sealed by the necklace had been removed. Her magic earlier is what she was born with. Isabelle also realizes the reason her magic had grown immensely lately was because Rix had the necklace. The realization that Isabelle is indeed of Imperial descent is further confirmed by Iris, stating her predecessor as Pulsis the 12th. This leads the confused Isabelle to ask why she was chosen by Iris, why these things have happened, and why she was abandoned by her parents. Hesitancy is apparent on Iris's face. She questions how much she should tell Isabelle, especially this terrible but great plan. Iris starts by admitting that she's had a complicated relationship with humans, as opposed to the holy text, being let down despite her blessings, especially House Pillsburg. So the goddess decided not to bless the bloodline anymore, only choosing Isabelle as the last pure Pillsburg to bless. Since that's the case, she promises to answer Isabelle's questions honestly. That's when visions of Isidora's life come back, of her bubbly childhood and reverence to Iris, to her depressed state after being married, marked with desperation for Iris's intervention. Finally, Isabelle asks if her parents are alive, and the reason for her abandonment. We next see Isabelle walking aimlessly in the hallway, shaken by the recent revelations. Though Isabelle's parents are dead, Iris had told her of Isidora's undying love, and that she wasn't abandoned, but was protected from the palace through Iris and Isidora's actions. These are the thoughts she shared with Rix when he finds her crying. Rix comforts Isabelle enough to stop her tears. Truly, she is happy finally knowing the truth about her parents. Rix assures her that Iris wouldn't have lied to her. Isabelle was actually afraid of asking Iris questions, fearing she'd learn something she isn't supposed to, and wondering if there's a reason for her to sacrifice her life for the Pillsburgs. Fortunately, Rix assures her to follow her heart, and promises that they'll face the dark times together. The couple shares each other's warm embrace as Isabelle thanks Rix. However, all's not well as evil personas are making their move. In Loykin Pillsburg Manor, the man himself is angry at the failed attack on the failed abduction of Isabelle during the wedding, and the apparent desertion of the Heavenly Army. When one was caught, Loykin interrogates him himself, promising safety. Kane, the captured knight, reveals the events that transpired during Duke Cardiego's wedding, especially the appearance of Iris within Isabelle and the subsequent scattering of the army. Unsurprisingly, Loykin breaks his word and sends Kane to the psychiatric ward. He then laughs maniacally, talking with Duke Cardiego. He expresses happiness, planning to take Isabelle as a wife to cement his place as emperor, and to reveal the Duke's supposed massacre at the Imperial meeting. There's also the Legalin estate, where Ian is beside himself because of Rix's rise to power and marriage to Isabelle. He mocks his sister Ira, the new head of the Legalin, and forcibly orders her to read Isabelle's future before the Imperial meeting occurs. Isabelle and Iris are working on the former's magic proficiency, which seems to be going well. This is to the delight of Rix, who observes them from a window. He's glad Isabelle isn't too down, considering she just learned of her parents' true fates. Anyway, this is good since Rix will be busy at the upcoming Imperial meeting. It's hosted by the Emperor and is centered around important social figures discussing the state of the Empire. Family members of those invited are also expected to attend. For Isabelle, she's also expected since she's a duchess, as tradition dictates. But Rix is wary of the situation. He can't agree outright. People have attacked them at their home. How much more at the palace? That's when Rix notices a letter from the Emperor that just arrived this morning. Upon reading it, a smirk forms on his lips. Apparently, it's a letter informing Rix that the Emperor's health isn't well enough to host the meeting. So Rix orders Bill to send out invitations that this year's Imperial meeting will be hosted by the Cardiegos. Those who deny the invite from the favored next in line will be seen as suspicious. Rix muses how they'll react, while Bill wonders how the people who ordered the attack at the wedding will respond. Bill ultimately trusts Rix's decision, knowing his ambition for the throne. Meanwhile, Isabelle's dress shopping isn't going as she imagined. It's not with social friends, but by an approved dressmaker named Susan. Rosa tries to assist Isabelle, but Iris suddenly does so herself, trying to be all she needs. Susan then suggests the dress designed for Isabelle during the Imperial meeting, with the Cardiego colors in mind. She instantly loves it and wants to show it to her husband, but to everyone's surprise, Rix is already there, and he can't even look at Isabelle because of her beauty. During the dark of night, Rix is terrorizing the Latour estate. Strewn across the mansion are the dead, with Viscount Latour begging Rix for mercy. But Rix, calm as ever, says he's already extended his mercy overlooking the Viscount's greed, embezzlement scams, and his rumor about his daughter marrying Rix. Rix asks him to complain in the underworld as he brings down his sword. It seems the Viscount incurred his wrath because of bad-mouthing Isabelle, the same reason he took care of him personally. Wow, this is Rix's literal dark side! Rix boards his carriage afterwards, where he discusses with Bill about the Imperial meeting preparations, and of Isabelle too. Though Bill says both are going great, with Isabelle amazingly memorizing the nobles' names quickly, Rix prefers to have an aide present with Isabelle, as he may be preoccupied at the meeting. Bill suggests Lady Celeste, hailing from the house loyal to the Cardiegos. She's been home about a year, and Rix decides to give her this chance to make up to Isabelle. And so he asks Bill to arrange the ladies' meeting to occur naturally. Nothing Isabelle has to want for this to work. Speaking of, Isabelle's still memorizing the nobles' names when she comes across Legalin House, known for Ira and Ian, twins who split the house's powers between them, predicting the future for Ira and purification for Ian. From outside, Rosa calls for Isabelle to prepare for a tea party invitation from Count Grey. The Reapers praise Isabelle's studying, and their conversation reminds Isabelle of Sister Maria, which saddens her due to her disappearance. Before leaving, Isabelle hears Iris, who wants to accompany her, making a commotion. The goddess then magically exchanges her clothes with Rosa, escalating the mess further to the annoyance of Rix. Still, Isabelle departs with Rix, leaving them with a reassuring wink. Rix and Isabelle arrive at the party and are greeted accordingly, though the butler notes how this is the couple's first appearance in such an event, which surprises Isabelle concerning Rix. Rix had been a noble for quite a while, but really preferred his solitude. Anyway, Isabelle assures Rix she'll be fine and bids him to go do his business. Frankly, despite being married to Rix, she knows very little of the Cardiegos. She barely knows Rix's uncle, Buey, who passed away. And so, that's her goal at this party, to prove she's worthy of the Cardiego name and to know more about Rix's family. Soon, the ladies all sat down for tea, with Isabelle receiving praise for her beauty from her peers. Soon, however, the appearance of the young Lady Elizabeth Celeste stirs the crowd. Countess Grey finds Isabelle and they talk, particularly of Elizabeth. Countess Grey explains the lady's a prodigy of shield magic, as is her house's role for House Cardiego. However, she's more feared than respected. But when Elizabeth and Isabelle find each other's gaze, Elizabeth shyly averts her eyes, cementing Isabelle's desire to introduce herself. The crowd highly anticipates Isabelle crumbling from Elizabeth's presence in high society, and from Elizabeth's greeting, it seems so. Only Isabelle notices Elizabeth's nervousness, and she realizes she isn't terrible, but like a fawn. So Isabelle gives her the biggest smile. Later, it seems the crowd gossips about Elizabeth dominating Isabelle. Actually, it's the other way around. Elizabeth's terrified of Isabelle. In truth, Elizabeth's deathly afraid of high society and has formed a persona to shield her from it. She's too afraid of Isabelle's kindness that she almost faints. She hilariously sees Isabelle on the moon, though. It's kind of funny. Anyway, Lena, her aide, is there to support Elizabeth. Frankly, Elizabeth's afraid that she might have offended Isabelle and had told Rix. The incident where her house got punished for her family's knights harassing a girl, who's Isabelle, by the way, close to the Duke, is still fresh in her mind. She doesn't want to repeat it. Lena gives Elizabeth her favorite book and leaves, vowing to protect Lizzie from Isabelle. However, Isabelle's already at the balcony, and she proceeds to talk and try to be friends with Elizabeth. Ultimately, they bond over their shared love of their, coincidentally, same favorite novel. Meanwhile, Lena talks with Isabelle's aides, who are watching over an excited Iris, and she's just missed Isabelle and Lizzie walking through the party as friends. Now, instead of competition, the crowd murmurs how they've become comfortable and are probably discussing philosophy. But really, it's their favorite book. Lena decides to pick a fight with Isabelle's aides. Her plan is to take the punishment and die, so that it'll be awkward for Lizzie and Isabelle to meet. thus saving her during high society events from each other's presence, all for Lizzie. So she desperately tries to pick a fight, threatening the aides must be slapped for claiming false rumors. To her surprise, Iris, still disguised, steps forward and offers herself to be slapped, noting how Lena's intentions have brought her joy. The goddess's radiance bursts forth, and even Lena feels she'll get punished for eternity for slapping this stranger, so she runs away. To her credit, that's a god. But really, what a noble servant you are, Lena! Meanwhile, Rix is wondering about Isabelle and contemplates meeting with Elizabeth when he sees the two being friendly. Immediately, he excuses himself from Count Grey, wishing his wife wouldn't smile so sweetly to a person she just met. Back to the new friends, they've really bonded over their share of romance, and sometimes spicy, books, when the topic falls on Rix's many rumors. Isabelle believes Elizabeth's referring to his lower body issues, while the latter tells the former of his dark side and power, creating some confusion when Lizzie said she has seen them herself. Really, what might Isabelle's reactions be if Lizzie does describe her experience with Rix? But anyway, Isabelle proceeds to dispel the rumors of Rix's lack of vigor intimate-wise, even as the man himself is approaching unbeknownst to her. Rix hugs her from behind and thanks Elizabeth because he got to hear his wife's praise because of her. Rix looks at Elizabeth seriously, informing her that although they may have seen each other many times, he assures her that he will not harm any of Isabella's friends. Thus, she doesn't need to worry, prompting Isabella to nudge Rix. Knowing this, Elizabeth looks surprised, but she promises Rix that she'll assist Isabelle during the Imperial meeting, not because she's ordered to do so, but because she wants to after talking and getting to know Isabelle, making Isabelle smile. On their way home, Isabelle recalls the scared look on Lizzie's face when she met Rix, possibly because she had seen Rix fight for his title. However, Isabelle's thoughts are interrupted when Rix asks what she's thinking. Isabelle looks at Rix and smiles, telling him it's not that important. Rix then asks her if she wants to know something about him. Isabelle simply needs to ask him directly, and he'll gladly answer. Noticing that Rix is worried, Isabelle hugs him while asking if the meeting made him feel exhausted. Rix then instantly turns into a cute boy and complains that everyone was mean to him today, making Isabelle even more like a baby Rix. Meanwhile, Ira is reading Isabelle's life, but can only see her memories, which makes her brother mad at Ira since she starts to become useless to him. Because of this, he leaves Ira, reminding her that to gain her freedom, she must marry Rix, despite being already married to Isabelle. The next morning, Loikin confidently recalls how flawless he plans to make Isabelle agree to marry him, and cockily thinks that a Pillsburg blessed by the Iris goddess doesn't belong to a Cardiego. I've never seen such a disgusting person. Y'all share the same blood. After checking the whole castle, Bill declares that it looks spotless, making the servants satisfied with their work. Kiel is in charge of tidying the outside of the castle, where large rocks block the paths. The young Reaper, exhausted from tidying the paths, comments on how weak the new Reaper's stamina is compared to theirs in the past. Later on, Kiel informs the Reapers that they need to start working again. The small rocks will be placed in the road where Loikin will be taking to make the carriage shake like crazy. Knowing this, the young Reaper quickly follows, since they also want Loikin to suffer. I like how you think, Kiel. Meanwhile, as Isabelle gets ready, she reviews her schedule with Bill for the coming days, noting that the next 2 weeks will be particularly crucial due to the upcoming Imperial meeting they'll be hosting. Afterwards, Isabelle finishes preparing and is ready to greet and welcome the guests arriving today. Still, she starts to remember that Loikin will also arrive today, who is her relative who wants to kidnap her. But then, as soon as Isabelle sees Rix, she realizes that she isn't alone, since Rix surely protects and stays by her side. Later on, Loikin arrives with a carriage that has squeaky wheels. He then steps outside and approaches Isabelle and Rix. Isabelle notices how similar they look, but still feels so indifferent toward Loikin. Upon arriving in front of Isabelle and Rix, Loikin thanks them for hosting and innocently recalls the news about Isabelle's attack, making her freeze. Thus, Rix quickly interrupts and informs Loikin that the servants will lead him to his room for him to rest. After Loikin's arrival, the other guests also begin to arrive. Thus, Isabelle and Rix are busy welcoming and entertaining the guests. Later that night, while Isabelle is getting ready to sleep, Iris is also combing her hair, and when Isabelle tries to stop Iris, she explains to Isabelle that she loves brushing her hair since it's one of her few hobbies. Afterward, sensing that Isabelle is quiet, Iris asks what is bothering her. Isabelle explains that she can't help but feel sad because she realizes that, although she never considered Loikin her family, she still hopes he might be her ally. However, she is mistaken as he turns out to be one of her enemies. Isabelle looks at Iris and thanks her for staying by her side, assuring her she can rest now since she feels much better. Outside the door, Iris stops Rix and asks to borrow some of his power, which Rix agrees to, since whatever he owns, Isabelle also owns. Next, upon entering the room, Rix moves closer to Isabelle and starts to comfort her. As a result, Isabelle begins to vent about how the people around her treat her like a tool for their benefits. Rix only listens to Isabelle, assuring her that her feelings are valid and promising to be by her side. Meanwhile, Kiel unleashes nightmares on a sleeping Loikin, who is still unknowingly resisting. Iris appears behind Kiel and lends a hand. The enemy of my enemy is a friend. Not Kiel and the goddess working together to harass this man. Isabelle recalls how the nuns comforted her when she was young and how their hugs and kisses made everything all right. Because of this, she now cherishes the kisses and recognizes their specialness. Thus, her young self often gives a little Rix kisses too, since she also wants to comfort him. Afterwards, Rix gently ends their kiss and pecks Isabelle's eye, remarking that she's no longer crying. Isabelle snaps back to reality, feeling awkward, and invites Rix to rest on the sofa beside her bed. Later that night, Isabelle is having a hard time sleeping because of the kiss she shared with Rix. Upon waking up the following morning, she feels a little tired, but quickly gets up to also wake Rix up. Isabelle happily wakes Rix up by pulling his blanket, revealing what's underneath, and Rix pulls it back, reminding Isabelle not to pull his blanket while hiding his embarrassment. Isabelle quickly leaves because of embarrassment too, leaving Rix thinking that Isabelle might start to feel something for him. Well, Rix looks hot. Afterwards, while Isabelle is lost in her thoughts, Iris happily informs her that Loikin will not be joining them during breakfast since he was unable to sleep due to a nightmare. While having breakfast with the guests, Isabelle feels relieved that Rix is on the other end of the table, but notices him looking at her while smiling, which the other guest also notices, making Isabelle shy. Next, while walking to the meeting room, Isabelle glances at Elizabeth and notices her nervousness. She reassures the ladies attending the meeting that they have the right to speak about the matter concerning the Empire, and thus they don't need to be intimidated. Hearing this, the ladies, especially Elizabeth, look at Isabelle adoringly. The mood quickly changes when Loikin approaches Isabelle while commenting on how good her scent is, and even comparing it to a lily. Because of this, Isabelle already has an idea that Loikin knows about her being a direct descendant of the Pillsburg. Loikin starts talking about the ladies joining the meeting and thinks that men's work is separate from women's work. Thus, if it were him, he would never force the ladies to attend the meeting. Isabelle looks at Loikin with annoyance and reminds him that someday, Loikin might be with a woman interested in politics. She also wishes that Loikin might be involved and the crown could be handed to her one day, which gives Loikin the chills. Loikin's garbage! During the meeting, Loikin begins to hint to the other nobles that he's a relative of the Emperor and has been personally selected to attend the Imperial meeting, where the topic of the Emperor's lineage may be discussed. Rixon asks Loikin serious questions. Attitude and statement suggest he wants to participate in the Imperial selection, which sends chills down the spines of all the guests, including Loikin. Isabelle realizes that 5 houses can vote in the election: Cardiego, Pillsburg, Legoland, and the Southern Nobles. Afterwards, Bill announces the arrival of the Southern Nobles in the House of Legoland's representative. Ira's brother then explains how busy they are, as the animals start to mutate and the evil energy spreads and intensifies. He directly asks for financial help, which the noble quickly agrees to. However, Isabelle comments that he favors giving the Legoland funds, which might backfire on them. Isabelle begins to explain that instead of solely funding the House of Legoland, she suggests a more effective solution, allowing the people to farm the area surrounding the Legoland castle, as the evil energy has not yet reached this area, impressing the other guests with her plan. Afterwards, while Isabelle is walking to see the mutant animal, Iris hugs and praises how great she is during the meeting, and the other ladies later on also praise Isabelle. Upon arriving outside, they instantly see the mutated beast. At the same time, the other people are busy looking at it. Isabelle notices Rix talking to someone, and she begins to stare at him, but quickly looks away after their eye contact. Fangirling over her husband. Next, Ira's brother informs them that they can look closer since they have already sedated the animal with magic. However, as soon as the people gather, Isabelle takes notice of the animal's rapid breathing and worries that it might wake up. True enough, Isabelle is right, since after a few minutes it wakes up and starts to charge towards her, making her freeze in place. Fortunately, Rix quickly blocks the animal and kills it before it reaches Isabelle. Afterwards, more mutated animals arrive outside, causing the people to panic, but Rix notices that all the animals are charging towards Isabelle. Thus, Rix quickly protects Isabelle, while Duke Legoland also helps them, but later feels exhausted because there are too many and he can't purify them alone. Realizing this, Iris hugs Isabelle and helps her free the mutated animals, knowing they're only victims. Everyone is shocked to witness how Isabelle purifies the animals and how she glows, making them think that she is a direct descendant of the Pillsbury family. Isabelle successfully saved the people and the animals, earning praise from the people. Loikin starts to stress as his plan begins to fail. Last night, Duke Legoland recalls the incident and realizes that Isabelle's power might be one of the reasons why the House of Pillsbury is snooping around the Cardiegos lately. Duke Legoland is amazed at how Isabelle purifies the energy without using the purification magic. Knowing this, Duke Legoland realizes that Isabelle might be the last direct descendant of the Pillsbury bloodline. Thus, he needs an in-depth explanation on how it happened, making him want to question the senior nun who is in his basement. So he's the one that took Head Mother! The next morning, Isabelle visits Iris in her room where she is resting after the incident and thinks about Rix not coming back to their bedroom that night. Next, upon leaving the room, Elizabeth approaches Isabelle and asks about her maid's condition. Isabelle assures her that her maid is already fine and resting. Elizabeth then invites Isabelle to the library, which she gladly accepts. Meanwhile, Loikin is eavesdropping on the ladies. Loikin follows Isabelle to the library, where the book he's reading instructs him to find the ring that can distort space and neutralize the Reaper's power, allowing them to talk to Isabelle alone. As Isabelle and Elizabeth busied themselves looking at the books, they noticed something near the bookshelf. Upon approaching, they were shocked to see Loikin standing there. Loikin explains that he is looking for some books because he finds them creepy. The ladies slowly back away, but then Loikin quickly uses the ring's power, thus isolating Isabelle from her companion. Isabelle then threatens Loikin that someone will come, but he boastfully explains that no one can enter since they're detached from time and space. Loikin tries to convince Isabelle to return to the Pillsbury house, explaining that she needs to give birth to continue the bloodline. However, Isabelle corrects him, pointing out that if she gives birth to a baby, the baby will continue the Cardiego bloodline. Loikin then explains that he is talking about him and Isabelle's union, which Isabelle quickly rejects and feels disgusted by. Loikin also shows the pendant of her mother, Isidora Pillsbury, which is also a key to unlock the door to the room. Hearing this, Isabelle still rejects Loikin, making him furious. That's right, you tell him! The blood of the Covenant is thicker than the water of the womb! Loikin starts to badmouth Rix to Isabelle, but she quickly stops Loikin and comments that she will never leave Rix, even after everything he said. When Loikin is forced to convince Isabelle, Rix suddenly breaks the barrier and chokes and beats him using his power. Loikin tries to fight back, but Rix is too strong for him. Rix also notices that Loikin's brooch contains a soul of the underworld, and that he's also using his deceased uncle's power. Thus, Rix furiously asks if Loikin touches the ring, making him tremble and faint while peeing himself. The servants are disgusted by Loikin's state and quickly inform the Pillsbury house to clean up their mess. Isabelle looks at Rix's wounds with concern, and Rix starts to act hurt to get Isabelle to continue comforting him. Meanwhile, the staff is shocked by Rix's actions, as he can go on for days fighting, but now acts like a weak man. Afterwards, while Rix is soaking his wound, Kiel confronts him about when Loikin is going to tell Isabelle about his parents, and also when he will address the gossip about his lower part of the body. Rix quickly dismisses and throws Kiel outside, prompting Kiel to visit Isabelle and inform her that Rix isn't healing correctly. Kiel, you little devil! Alone, Rix recalls how cold his parents were to him in the past, and constantly reminded him to act like a Cardiego. As time passed by, Rix's parents became more attentive to him after knowing that Rix excreted poison from his body. But they only treated him as a tool, since even if Rix was in pain while training, his father didn't care at all. Rix also recalls that his uncle, Duke Cardiego, is the only family member who hugs him. Thus, when he hands Rix a tea that he can give to his parents, Rix innocently accepts it. Still, he realizes that his trusted uncle betrays him after witnessing how his parents died from the poison he excreted. Buey is evil! Afraid of losing his parents forever, Rick sealed their souls in their wedding ring. Although his uncle always reminds him that no one will ever hug him, Rix proves him wrong when Isabelle hugs and treats him warmly. Lost in his thoughts, Isabelle barges into the bathroom and concerningly asks Rix what she can do to ease his pain. Realizing that this is all Kiel's plan, Rix again asks like a helpless baby and suggests to Isabelle that his wounds will heal quickly when rubbed directly with the herbs, which Isabelle quickly does. Afterwards, Isabelle is drawn to Rix's lips and moves closer, but stops upon realizing her mistake. However, Rix pulls her close and continues the kiss. Afterward, while in the bedroom, Isabelle starts to remember the time Rix gifted her a book about 101 ways to break the ice. Remembering this, Isabelle begins to blush and freely falls into her bed. Noticing Rix's arrival, Isabelle quickly hides under the blanket while asking how Rix's wound is. Rix then informs her that it has already healed, thanks to her taking care of him. He offers that Isabelle can even touch it if she doesn't believe him. Isabelle reluctantly reaches out her hands, which Rix guides to his side, and then Isabelle notices how smooth and soft his skin is, and how ripe his abs are. Next, Rix lies beside Isabelle, making her feel uncomfortable. Rix explains that he'll be sleeping in bed because he finds the sofa uncomfortable, and Isabelle agrees. Isabelle starts to stare at Rix and realizes that he's the main reason she didn't join Loiken. If Loiken had proposed to her in the past, she might have accepted, as she also wants to have a family. Later that night, Rix notices that Isabelle is already sleeping peacefully. He gets up and visits Loiken together with Kiel and the other Reapers. Rix looks at the sleeping Loiken and then instructs Kiel to read his memories and report them to him. After Kiel told him about what happened in the library with Loiken and Isabelle, Rix instructed him to eat Loiken's memories and reminded the Reapers never to let Isabelle know about the former Empress. But she still deserves to know the truth. In the following days, everything goes as planned, and Iris also regains her strength. The Imperial meeting continues, and they decide that the Empire will assist the House of Legoland in dealing with the evil energy. Finally, the last event to mark the end of the Imperial meeting is the Last Supper. As everyone eats at the table, Isabelle notices Loiken's discomfort beside Rix, and wonders if it's because Loiken stole the ring that belongs to Rix's family. Afterwards, while Isabelle is cutting her steak, she notices Duke Legoland staring at her, making her feel uncomfortable. Thus, Duke Legoland opens up about how thankful he is for Isabelle and hopes that she can visit the House of Legoland soon. Isabelle respectfully replies that she can't decide on her own, and also thanks Duke Legoland for visiting their home instead, and proceeds to eat her steak happily. Witnessing that nothing happens to Isabelle, Duke Legoland proves that Isabelle has a purification power. That evening, Kiel and Isabelle watch as the noble carriage left the palace, which made them feel relaxed. Kiel then asks Isabelle what Rix means to her, and she truthfully replies that Rix is someone she can't stop thinking about, quickly changing the subject, even though Kiel wants to continue the conversation. Meanwhile, Loiken appears exhausted inside his carriage, and feels enraged again about Isabelle's rejection, despite his attempts to disparage Rix. Still, Loiken later starts to panic when his carriage starts to crash. Loiken deserves it. After their hectic schedules, Isabelle and Rix are relaxing in the garden, where Rix informs her that he will be leaving in a month to visit the Legoland Duchy. Still, Isabelle informs Rix that she will be joining him, which Rix quickly disagrees with, since it's too dangerous. Learning that Rix will not allow her, Isabelle feels upset because Rix works so hard while she's doing nothing at home. Hearing this, Rix feels touched, but tries to stop himself from agreeing. Isabelle looks at Rix again and tries to convince him to let her join, explaining that she'll only help purify the poison in his body and won't fight any beast while holding his hands. She knows Rix can't resist her when she stares at him directly. With this action, Rix defiantly agrees to let Isabelle join him, making Isabelle happy. Meanwhile, Iris happily walks to visit Isabelle, and upon arriving in her room, she notices Isabelle, and they are busy packing her stuff. Isabelle then informs Iris that she'll be joining Rix in going to the Legoland Duchy, which Iris quickly also volunteers to go as well. Still, Isabelle says that she can't come since Iris needs to rest and recover. Rix then adds that the carriage only has space for him and Isabelle, making Iris gasp at this decision. While Isabelle is busy preparing, Iris approaches Rix and comments that she knows he's trying to separate her from Isabelle. She then blurts out that she is also the one who started the rumor about Rix's dysfunction. Iris, you're busted! Meanwhile, Duke Legoland reminds Ira to do her job and not let Isabelle find out about the nun. Isabelle and Rix depart for Legoland Castle. On the way there, Isabelle finds herself sensing poison in the area. Curious, she turns to Rix to ask if he's feeling alright, asking to see what's wrong. Hilariously, Rix was actually plotting his revenge against Iris's schemes, but decides not to. After all, Isabelle worships the goddess Iris. She'd be shocked to hear that it was the goddess herself who spread the false rumors about him. Seeing Rix ignore her, she can't help but think it was unfair of him to have secrets of his own and not tell her. Like, dude, she's your best friend and your wife! Isabelle continues to question him, even stating how he kept his identity as the Duke a secret. Hearing his response, she feels he's being too stingy. Maybe kissing him again will reveal more of his secrets. Shocked by her boldness, he runs out of the carriage. Out of nowhere, he's attacked by beasts. As the sun goes down, Isabelle, Kiel, and the guard settle in for the night. Still no sign of Rix. Curious, Isabelle turns to Kiel, who's known Rix the longest, hoping for answers. But just as he begins, Kiel stiffens. Something's wrong. He senses danger. Beasts burst from the shadows surrounding the group. One lunges straight to Isabelle, its fangs inches from her. It's clear she's their target. Lizzie rushes to her side, panic rising. She's worried about the poison. If it even harmed Isabelle, it could be fatal. But when she sees Isabelle standing calm and unharmed, Lizzie exhales in relief. Just then, Rix finally appears. He steps in, slashing through the chaos to support the others. Isabelle's eyes light up at the sight of him, but Rix's expression shifts the moment he sees her. Her clothes tainted with the beast's blood. His glare lands hard on Kiel and the guards, cold and sharp. Once the battle ends, Isabelle and Lizzie head to a nearby river to wash off the mess. The warm water soothes her, and as Isabelle leans back, memories rush in. The place feels oddly familiar, similar to the time she got drunk for the first time. Later, back in the carriage, Isabelle stares out the window, still trying to piece together what really happened that night. Her thoughts scatter when someone knocks at the door. It's Rix. He steps inside, eyes catching her damp hair. Picking up a towel, he gently dries it. More memories begin to stir. That night, Rix spoke about his past, the ring, his parents, and their first kiss? But didn't they just kiss for the first time recently? Confused, Isabelle asks him, but instead of a clear answer, he deflects. She starts to doubt herself. Maybe she remembered it wrong. Eventually, the two drift off to sleep, tangled in each other's warmth. At dawn, Lord Loikin waits impatiently, expecting the doctor to arrive. But his butler delivers unwelcome news. Apparently, the Emperor has summoned him for something urgent. That alone is enough to send Loikin into rage. He seethes, immediately blaming Rix, Duke Cardiego, for everything that's gone wrong. He storms across the room, rummaging through his coat, realizing both the ring and the brooch are gone. Fury erupts. He hurls anything within reach. To him, it's all betrayal. He curses the fact he's been used, nothing more than a pawn in someone else's grand game. Suddenly, a sharp throb pierces his skull. He bellows for a doctor. The doctor finally arrives, clearly not thrilled. He's annoyed at having to treat someone as distant from the Imperial bloodline. Meanwhile, Loikin's advisors exchange wary glances. They urge him to stop, suggesting he abandon his reckless plans and rein his fury before it consumes him. Back in the carriage, Isabelle stares blankly ahead, still tangled in thoughts of that night. No matter how hard she tries, the memories just won't come back. It's like her mind has locked them away. Frustrated, she sighs and shifts her gaze out the window. What she sees takes her breath away. Legoland looking beautiful, lush, serene, almost unreal. As the carriage enters the sacred kingdom, Isabelle notices the townspeople watching them with cold expressions. And she understands why. Legoland stands under the divine blessing of goddess Iris, while House Cardiego is steeped in the dark power of the underworld. At the castle gates, 3 elderly men await them. They offer polite greetings and explain that Duke Legoland had to leave urgently. There's a surge of magical beasts and poison outbreaks nearby. The Duke and all his knights are out dealing with the threat. That explains why there wasn't any security in the area. The elders escort them inside, showing them to their quarters. Isabelle takes in her surroundings, marveling at the difference between this place and the Cardiego estate. Meanwhile, far from the castle, Duke Legoland and his knights face off against the beasts, ravaging the land. Their swords flash, spells ripple through the air, but something feels off. The beasts all look in one direction, toward the castle. The knights notice it immediately. There's no mistaking it. The creatures are sensing someone. But who? The Duke's eyes narrow. Now he understands. They're not just looking toward the castle, they're looking for Isabelle. Isabelle takes a stroll through the castle grounds, her senses alert. There's something unusual here. A strange mix of poison in the air, tangled with an overwhelming divine force. As she gazes toward the distant towers, her eyes catch something unusual. A flicker, a shadow in one of the windows. There for only a second, it vanishes. She stares, puzzled. Before she can think more on it, Duke Legoland appears behind her. He's calm, polite, and straight to the point. He wonders if her arrival means she's agreed to his request. Not wanting to engage, she simply suggests he take care of his injuries before worrying about anything else, choosing to walk away. But just as they part ways, a surge of dark energy crashes towards him. Rix. His presence changes the air instantly, sharp, unrelenting. He warns him not to interact with Isabelle. The two men lock eyes. Their words are civil, sharp as blades, thrown back and forth. As Rix turns to leave, Duke Legoland fires one last time. If Isabelle is truly his wife, then why isn't she wearing the house ring? Rix pauses, warning him not to cross certain lines, not for his sake, but for his own. Legoland holds his ground, recalling what happened days ago, how Loikin lost an eye after meeting with Isabelle in private. It can't be a coincidence. High above in the castle tower, Ira watches. She channels her power silently. Back in the castle quarters, Lizzie and Isabelle's maids thank Isabelle for lending her divine powers onto them. As night falls, Lizzie prepares to rest, but just as she leaves, Isabelle pulls her aside. There's something she needs to know. She asks about Rix. Could he be suffering from the poison? Lizzie shakes her head. She knows him well. He's strong. That kind of poison wouldn't take him down easily. Later that night, Isabelle hears her name. Rix stands there, his expression clearly troubled. He admits it, not directly, but enough. Even someone as strong as Rix still has moments of unease. Isabelle calls out to Rix once more, her voice soft, filled with concern. She can tell something's off with him. She turns to Lizzie, telling her to rest for the night. Once the door closes, the room falls silent. Just the two of them now. Inside her quarters, Isabelle places her hands over Rix, channeling her power onto him. Her hands glow faintly as they hover close, each move filled with care. She asks what's wrong, why he seems so distant tonight. Rix admits he misses her, that being away all day left him feeling hollow. The moment grows heavy, the closeness, the silence, it's all too much. Rix breaks the air, shifting the mood with the story, a tale about a fairy who found a way to make humans immortal. But his point is clear, he doesn't want to end like the boy in the tale. He wants her to protect him completely, with no part of him left untouched. Okay, Sir is not subtle anymore. Isabelle understands what he means, so she takes her time, guiding her hands over his body, making sure every part is safely shielded. The room fills with quiet magic and something else. Something unspoken. Intense. The air thickens. With a sudden move, Rix pushes her just enough to make her fall back onto the couch. She gasps, cheeks flushed. Before she can speak, he leans down, pressing a kiss to her nape. Slow and deliberate. Rix is definitely not holding back anymore. He's testing the line between them. Every movement, every touch speaks louder than words, and it's clear he doesn't want distance between them anymore. But just when things heat up, with no warning, Isabelle throws herself forward, hitting his head hard. She bolts out the room, her heart racing, leaving him stunned and alone. He sits there thinking he might have scared her off. But in truth, Isabelle ran not out of fear, but because the moment affected her, more than she was ready to admit. The next day arrives with anticipation in the air. Everyone gathers to welcome the Pillsburg expedition team. Isabelle stands among them, nervous. The thought of seeing Loikin again unsettles her, especially after what happened between them. Rix notices. He leans in, gently reassuring her that Loikin won't be showing up today. Her shoulders relax as she lets out a small breath of relief. But before the moment settles, Lizzie speaks up. She speaks up, calling out Isabelle's habit of avoiding conflict. If she wants to stand her ground, she needs to stop hiding and face her enemies head-on. The problem? Isabelle couldn't look intimidating if she tried. No matter how fierce she tries to look, she still looks innocent. Even with narrowed eyes and a forced glare, she just ends up looking sweet. Rix can't help but stare, clearly amused. He finds her adorable. Kiel, on the other hand, is visibly grossed out. Soon after, the nobles' meeting begins. The air inside is stiff, tense. That's when Ira finally steps forward, introducing herself formally. Late, but with grace. Her presence adds to the weight of the room. Her eyes linger, especially on Isabelle. Then, like a crack in the silence, the door swings open. A cheerful voice spills into the hall, loud and unbothered. In comes a whirlwind of energy. Kira Pillsbury, leader of the expedition. Everyone freezes, heads turning. Safe to say, she didn't get the memo on quiet entrances. Amid the stir, Isabelle senses something strange. Far off in the distance, Ira stood quietly observing her. Before long, the formal meeting begins and Isabelle steps out. She wanders out the castle grounds with Lizzie. But Kira, ever unpredictable, follows right after her. The nobles had excused her from the main meeting, not expecting much from her anyway. Kira wastes no time, greeting Isabelle warmly, full of compliments and wide-eyed curiosity, but then her tone shifts. She leans in, voice lowered, and asks if she knew anyone related to the House Pillsbury. Isabelle stiffens. For a moment, everything feels suspended. Is Kira pretending, or is she truly unaware? Because the answer Kira is looking for is standing right in front of her. Kira, still clueless as ever, goes on about her mission to meet this mysterious descendant. She turns to Isabelle with wide-eyed excitement, assuming, of course, that someone as poised as her must have met this amazing person already. Isabelle hesitates, giving her a short answer. Deep down, she's unsure. Should she say something? Her thoughts are quickly cut off, hearing Loikin has been injured. Kira shares that something had pierced his eye. Isabelle and Lizzie exchange glances. Neither says it out loud, but both know exactly who's behind it. Later, at the castle's tea party, things seem good. Everyone smiles, chats, and sips delicately from porcelain cups. Ira joins in, mentioning how relieved she is that the Pillsbury team has arrived. If they hadn't, they would have to deal with the magical beasts themselves. Kira, still unaware, beams with pride, confidently claiming that they wouldn't have to worry as long as the hidden descendant of the Pillsbury house is there to help them. Suddenly, the room goes quiet. The tone shifts, subtle but sharp. Ira speaks up, gently steering the spotlight toward Isabelle. Eyes slowly turn. Kira stares at Isabelle, but before she can connect the dots, Lizzie flashes a deadly look that scares her in her tracks. As the party moves into casual chatter, Ira steps out, excusing herself. Isabelle and Lizzie stay behind, quietly listening. Whispers exchange through the group. Rumors about Isabelle's status, her connection with Duke Cardiego, and plenty of gossip disguised with curiosity. But what the noble women don't realize is that Isabelle is walking straight toward them, with a smile so polite it's terrifying. Just outside the tea party, hidden in the bushes, two eavesdroppers crouch low. Kiel and Rix, clearly invested in the tea party drama. Rix, completely flustered hearing Isabelle call him her husband in front of everyone. Then, a sound. Both freeze. Not far off, Ira stands alone, clutching on a tree. Inside the castle walls, tension gathers as the leaders of each noble house meet. The topic? The growing threat of magical beasts surrounding Legoland. Strategies are laid out, roles are assigned. The weight of the task ahead hangs heavy in the air. As they finalize plans, Duke Legoland turns to Isabelle. Calm and direct, he asks if she'll join their forces on the field. Before she can speak, Rix cuts in. His voice is cool but firm. Isabelle won't be heading into danger. She'll remain close to him. Time passes and each group sharpens their skills. Training begins in full force. As part of the front line, Isabelle is expected to learn horseback riding. She throws herself into it, determined to keep up. After practice, curiosity pulls her towards the soldiers' training grounds. Their drills are intense, and their shirts are noticeably missing. She observes quietly. Rix appears to have noticed her gaze. His eyes narrow as he catches her gaze flicking toward the shirtless troops. Jealousy flickers. Then, in one smooth motion, he unbuttons his shirt. Isabelle's face turns red. She scrambles to button him back up, clearly not in the mood for his dramatics. Far beneath the castle, away from the training and sunlight, Duke Legoland walks through the shadows of the dungeon. He stops in front of a lone cell. Inside, shackled and silent, is none other than Sister Maria. Turns out, Duke Legoland had saved her from death. Not out of mercy, but for leverage. Now he keeps her hidden beneath the castle, a prisoner in plain strategy. When he mentions Isabelle's arrival, her fury ignites. She lashes out, warning him to stay away from the girl. But Legoland doesn't flinch. With cold resolve, he draws a blade into her, knowing all too well that death doesn't come easily for someone like her. Far from the dungeon, in a place beyond time and mortal reach, the slumbering goddess Iris stirs. Annoyed by the soul disturbing her peace, she prepares to drift off once more. But that same presence returns, gentle, innocent, a child. She offers berries, thinking the goddess might be ill. Amused, and perhaps just a little touched, Iris accepts the offering. Time flows differently in this divine space. The child grows year by year, returning again and again with her tiny acts of kindness. Eventually, the girl becomes a young woman. Her name is Isidora. A divine bond begins with a single act of compassion, and Iris, despite her power, isn't immune to it. Iris stirs once again, roused by the familiar voice of Isidora. But this time, the girl she once knew has grown into a young woman. The goddess blinks through the haze of slumber, confused. Her sleep feels longer, heavier with each passing visit. Isidora, radiant yet burdened, confesses she doesn't wish to marry. All she wants is to remain by the goddess's side. But then, darkness. Iris awakens to Isidora's cries. She'd been asleep for years while Isidora searched, begged, pleaded for her to return. The guilt crushes her. Kneeling before the woman she once watched grow, Iris is met with despair. Isidora doesn't ask for comfort. She asks to die. Anything to spare her unborn child from the cruelty of this world. That moment changes everything. Iris swears a silent vow. Years later, the child is born, and that child came to be named Isabelle. Back in the present, Iris travels towards Legoland Castle, unaware that she and Isabelle have already crossed paths. As the sun begins to sink, the soldiers prepare to camp. The journey ahead is still long, and night settles in quietly, though danger is never far. Duke Legoland's words linger in Isabelle's mind, unsettling her. Something about them strikes a strange chord. It's the wish he made, eerily similar to the one she herself whispered when she was young. The memory of Sister Maria rushes in like a wave, and her eyes sting with tears. Thankfully, Rix is there, steady, warm, a quiet shelter from the emotional storm. His presence alone pulls her back to herself. Duke Legoland, annoyed once more to find Rix standing between him and Isabelle, takes his leave without another word. Later that evening, Rix offers for her to stay in his tent. The promise of food is hard to resist, and with her energy drained, she accepts. The comfort of a warm meal soon fades into a growing drowsiness. She doesn't even argue when Rix tells her to rest. She simply lets her body fall into the softness of the bed. Rix lies down beside her. As she breathes slowly and steady in sleep, he watches over her silently. In his mind, a quiet promise forms. No matter what's coming, no matter how close the danger creeps, he'll protect her, even if it means risking everything. Because someone, or something, is coming, and it's after her. At the break of dawn, Rix, Isabelle, and their group reach the front lines, early, focused, and ready. This is the place where the real battle begins. Kira soon catches up with them, her steps light, but her expression more serious than usual. She finally gets a moment alone with Isabelle. No more guessing, no more pretending. She now knows the truth. But Isabelle doesn't hesitate. She makes it clear. She won't return to Pillsburg. Then comes the question that catches Kira off guard. If it came down to it, would she choose her own life, or the one Pillsburg expects her to live? For the first time, Kira is silent, stunned into thought. Moments later, the rest of the Allied forces arrive. Discussions begin, strategic, intense, and with no room for emotion. Once everything's in place, they head off to their designated areas, tension building in the air. Meanwhile, Duke Legoland struggles. Ever since reaching the mountains, his body has been betraying him, worn down, sick. He can't afford to draw attention to himself, not now. Not when the secret he carries could shatter everything. And for his plan to work, he still needs Isabelle. Back at the front, Isabelle stands tall beside Rix, their soldiers lined up behind them. Armor clinks, weapons are drawn, breaths held in unison. Then thunder. A wall of magical beasts spills out across the land before them, a terrifying sight surging like a dark tide. Rix raises his hand, everyone holds their ground, and then, on his signal, the attack begins. Blades drawn and eyes locked, the armies charge forward, steel meeting claw, magic colliding with fury. The battlefield erupts in chaos as soldiers clash with the wave of magical beasts. But something's off. Among the frenzy, the Cardiego troops and the rest of the Legoland forces notice an absence. Duke Legoland, nowhere in sight, rests on the sidelines, avoiding the thick of battle. Sensing the growing danger, Rix calls on Kiel, ordering him to stay close to Isabelle. The beasts are becoming stronger, darker. This fight is turning fast. From a distance, Isabelle watches Rix dive into the fray alone. Her heart pounds, torn between helping and staying protected. Then a new threat appears. A monstrous dragon beast tears through the line, scattering soldiers and crushing defenses. With no time to spare, Isabelle steps forward. She channels her power, letting a wave of purification sweep through the field. The twisted energy recoils, and the weaker beasts begin to falter. But the dragon doesn't. It pushes forward, eyes fixed on her. Before it reaches her, Rix slashes through its path, just in time. As night falls, the survivors regroup and tend to the wounded. Isabelle moves quietly between the injured, her hands glowing faintly as she heals what she can. On the edges of camp, murmurs rise among the Legoland soldiers. Questions about their leader. If Duke Legoland really possesses divine powers, why hadn't he used them? Pushed into a corner, the Duke steps forward to prove himself. Energy swirls, and for a moment, it looks like he might succeed. But then, the ground trembles. A colossal serpent rises behind him, its eyes glowing with ancient malice. Isabelle screams for him to run, but it's too late. We'll stop here for today, guys. Yes, I know you want more. Don't forget to ask for the next part in the comment section. Thank you guys for watching and for your support. Please subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Till the next one.